mic is like, oh, we're live. Just came in my show.
Oh, that's it. That's the one we're looking for. Privacy, and we'll be live any second. Well, we are live, but that's all right. Don't say anything offensive. Because we would never do that. Don't say anything I wouldn't say. How's that? Is that better?
That doesn't leave much, Dean.
No. The beauty of being a free speech absolutist. So absolutely whatever the hell you want.
Oh, man.
A couple of seconds until 7:30, but our people will start rolling in. We always like to give them that little lead in. It gives me a bit of time to set up the Facebook side of it and a couple of other little bits and bobs, and put on my beauty makeup and stuff and look like $1 million.
You always look like $1 million, Dean.
Oh, Katie, you're going to make me blush. You're going to make me blush. And Lisa's watching. She'll get upset. She'll get jealous.
Oh, hello, Lisa. Congratulations on snagging Dean. I can't wait for your wedding. I'm shooting the shotgun out the front of the church when you walk outside.
I expect machine gun fire. Right, yeah, we better do our intro. Otherwise, Anthony will end up in trouble. I won't end up in trouble.
More trouble.
He will end up in more trouble. So let's do it. Do you want to do this one?
I will. Welcome to episode 3, season 2, Dean and Herb, the Spin Doctors. We've got a special guest here, Kate Fantinel, who's Lady Liberty.
Liberty.
Noted advocate for gun owners, gun users, and what would you say, the rights of gun ownership in Australia. Welcome tonight. I'll introduce myself. My name's Anthony Irvine. I'm a councillor on Temora Shire Council, but the views I express here are mine and mine alone, and not those of Temora Shire Council.
And I'm Dean McRae, and my views are 100% my own views. I answer to nobody. Nobody's paying me to say anything. I do exactly what I want, when I want, how I want. And if I'm saying it, I absolutely stand by it. If somebody else is saying it on the program, obviously that's their own view and they're entitled to it. And it's as always, it's a pleasure to be rocking and rolling here with you this Thursday night, Councillor, and obviously to have the magnificent Katie Fan. Now, we've actually run some political campaigns together. We got quite a history, as you know, in the political space. And Kate was the lead Senate candidate in WA in the last lot of federal elections for the Liberal Democrats, the party that I used to be very, very active in. Katie used to be very, very active in. Now we're both kind of, I guess, flying our own flag in our own space, but none of the principles have changed. Just the, how often we're wearing certain branded T-shirts have changed a little bit, I think.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for having me here tonight. I had the best time in Temora with you lads. It was such a pleasure to meet you, Councillor Irving. You're a bloody legend, hearing everything that you have to put up with in the council and fighting the good fight. And obviously, Dean, I've known you for over a decade now, I think, and it's just been such a journey, our liberty journey, our activism, what we do. You're an inspiration of mine. So thank you for having me on your show.
You're making me blush twice now in all of 2 minutes. I've got a big head. I'll end up with an ego challenge.
Well, so please lead us into what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, so I am making my way back to Western Australia. I'm currently spending some time at home with my family in South Australia. I'm in my dad's gun room at the moment. Everyone be very jealous. He's ready to go. So heading back to WA, there is an election there on the 8th of March. I was considering running against Police Minister Paul Papalia because he is the architect of the outrageous gun laws there, but I've had to pull the pin on that. As Dean knows, and you would know, Councillor Irving, politics is a very dirty game. So I've taken my hat out of the race and I have launched legal action against the WA government for their gun laws. I've got a team of lawyers ready to go because we have not received any legal advice about the gun laws and where they can be challenged in court. So I've put together a team and a King's Council who will be identifying areas of the laws that we can challenge in Western Australian Supreme Court. So that's what I've been working on. I've raised about 13 grand. I just checked before I came on the show. Target's 30 grand. Lawyers are expensive. I am getting it at a discounted price. But yes, that's what I've been working on. No rest for the wicked.
Isn't it extraordinary how things have changed and how complacent Australians seem to have become. In the local forests around Temora and at Ganmain, where I grew up, there are gun ranges, disused. They're fallen into disuse nowadays, but they were there between the wars for people to maintain their skills with a firearm. It was considered a handy skill to have and something to be nurtured and preserved, and it created some sort of an ability to defend a country, or to turn up
home, a private property,
even to turn up on a battlefield in another land and be proficient with the tools of trade. Australians have always been recognised, I think, as relatively good soldiers. I think a lot of that's come from their familiarity or regular use with firearms. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right. And back in the day, the government released wild pigs across the country so people could go out and keep their marksmanship sharp. This was around the Boer War times. So it's been horrendous to see the way that gun owners have been treated in this country since 96. I am old enough to remember 96 and the changes there. But WA restrictions on the number of private firearms that you can own, 5 or 10 is the number that it's going to be capped at, and that will just destroy the market over there as well. So it's gotten to the point, and
capping calibers as well, is that correct?
Yes, they've restricted. That was the first thing they did. They did a big gun confiscation scheme of high velocity firearms, they called it, which ended up disarming many veterans over there who shoot long range precision rifle. They were the first to have to hand in their guns. And since then, it's just been a death by 1,000 cuts. Now we have storage requirements, 10 millimeter safe if you own more than 2 handguns. These safes aren't widely available in Australia, so that's another challenge my lawyers are looking at, because it's just gotten to the point where people are not able to comply. So they're going to be made criminals because the laws are so extreme that no one is able to abide by them, and that's how they'll take away the gun. So I really think this legal action challenge is so important, because it's gone way too far over there. They're destroying an entire industry. We are a minority group as well, and the way we've been portrayed in the media over there has been disgusting. So I'm trying to do what I can to hold on to as many guns as we can and stop the laws at the source, because they will spread. They will come to other states. I know everyone across over East are thinking they won't come to you, but there was news in the media today about restrictions on the number of firearms we can own across the country now. So that has entered the national debate. This is what I was scared about. They will use WA as the poster child for gun laws, and then it's just downhill from then. And who would have thought, especially you, Councillor Irving, that since 96 we will get to a point now where we are going to be even more restricted, when we've had no major incidents with firearms. We're peaceful people who use these firearms for hunting or sporting purposes, and now we're being restricted even more.
Well, and they're tools of trade. They form a very valuable management tool for a lot of the agricultural operators in Australia. And when I grew up, there wasn't a ute in the street of the country town I grew up in that didn't have a firearm behind the back seat. They were never pulled out and used irresponsibly. They were always just there because they needed to be there, and they could you could deal with the pests as they arose quickly and efficiently.
And now look at Canberra, full of them. Pests everywhere.
It's funny that there was an article recently where the management at Federal Parliament or Parliament House were engaging contract shooters to actually exterminate rabbits off the lawns of Parliament House, and they were experiencing quite a rabbit plague in Canberra. This is something that we're experiencing here to some extent. There's been a bit of an upswing in the number of these pests, and the lack of management tools, I think it's a silly move to remove options there for the landholder to control some of these pests. If you manage them continually and diligently, then they don't get into plague proportions. We've got some really serious issues, and the Invasive Pest Council of Australia have just appointed someone who's been tasked with managing the rabbit plague that is starting to re-emerge.
And that's another thing that I will say. I've been contacted by so many landowners in WA and hunters too. They need more than 10 guns to be able to do this humanely. You need different calibers, different guns for different jobs. So what are they meant to hand back when they use all of their firearms for these public service, I would say, like going out hunting and culling pests for farmers? That is a public service that we do in our own time with our own money. They've just made it even harder for us to do that. The landowners now have to register their property with the state, and the state will assess the size of the property and what they think is the acceptable caliber of firearm you can use, how many shooters you can have on your property at any one time. It's gotten to the point where we do not have property rights in this country, and it's not just about guns, it's about landowners managing their farms effectively, safely and humanely. And I really have fears for what this will have an effect on the livelihoods of our farmers. The repercussions of these kind of overreaching laws, it's going to be horrendous.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct there. Surely the decision rests with the landowner. They're the people who are at the grassroots at round zero.
Well, it's nobody's business, in my opinion. If you're a landowner and you want to have 10 shooters, 20 shooters, 1,000 shooters come, it's entirely up to you. The government and some idiot, dickhead bureaucrat in an office who has never fired a gun wouldn't know what, couldn't pick one up, wouldn't know where to start. The fact that they're making these decisions is disgusting, and surely we can only have so many idiots in charge.
The landowner understands their land, and they understand the pest load, and they quite often landowners will say, don't target this pest species or don't target that pest species. They know what the problem is and they know what to target at the time. And for anyone else to be able to dictate to them what the problem is on their own property, I think is a little bit absurd. And we know, because of the lack of the use of firearms or the lack of pest control, a lot of these pests, like New South Wales, I think the state government announced $80 million for the management of feral pigs. We've got a situation at the moment where people are building feral-proof enclosures to try and preserve some of the native wildlife of Australia. So there's an article I read the other day about up at the Warrumbungles up near Coonabarabran, where they've just...
So Coonabarabran, Katie's up where our dear friends Petey Rothwell and Chris Raworth and those guys are all hanging out. They're up in that sort of territory, that kind of country.
Yeah,
okay.
There's some interesting country up there. There's not far from another big scrub called the Pilliga scrub, up around Dubbo, that type of area, Western New South Wales, Mid-Western New South Wales, I think you'd probably describe it as. Now, they're trying to preserve a wallaby in this enclosure because they've been predated upon by feral cats, introduced foxes, and all other forms of wild dogs, whatever it might be. And we're at the point now where we're having to build fences to put the animals that we want to preserve in these enclosures. The pest problem, I don't think the pest problem is understood by a lot of people. And I seriously, I'll give you an example. Middle of last week, I went out for a couple of hours to harvest some wild rabbits for Wyres, who are the animal rescue people in New South Wales. They had some raptors in. and for want of another word, wedge-tailed eagle, injured wedge-tailed eagles. So they wanted some game to feed these wedge-tails. So I went out and harvested the wild rabbits and delivered them to the wires people. Just getting rid of one pest, helping these people do their job to save
native animals. Gets far more votes than the non-native animals.
Sunday night, I went out hunting and shot 13 foxes on prime lamb production country. Like, it was safe, it was effective, it was efficient, it was very discriminate. There was no.
Well, that's the problem. You can't discriminate. It's 2025, mate. Everybody's equal.
Well, this is the problem. This is the thing. If you use poison, it
kills anything.
And also the residual poison in the system can go on and kill. So if you poison something, that poison stays in the animal that's been poisoned, and then it might be preyed upon by an eagle or some other animal,
native animal that we give a shit about, as opposed to the ones we don't.
And that poison goes through the system, as opposed to the discriminate idea of, no, you're a fox, night. You're not a fox.
Yeah.
Carry on. So and one of the things that I'd like your thoughts on this, Katie. A lot of the literature seems to indicate that shooting isn't a very effective forms of control, but I don't know whether that literature or the people who are assessing this have caught up with the advent of thermal and the effectiveness of that, just how effective those means are nowadays, where you can go out and really remove a significant number of those pests in a very short period of time, very efficiently.
Well, where I am in South Australia, I'm in the Flinders Ranges, and my dad and I have been up in the hills behind me culling goats for years. Goats are terrible for the environment. They trample on everything. They are so destructive. 194 goats we dispatched the other week, so that was in our own time and with our own money. And they do have helicopter culls.
They taste really good. You got to cook them up. Don't waste that meat.
You can, and that's the other thing. We have a freezer full of food, game meat, in a cost of living crisis when meat is going up and up and up. We have enough food now to feed our family, and that is another reason why we do this. But they do have helicopter culling that goes through here, which is not as efficient. It is so expensive. The taxpayer pays for this, by the way. So instead we use volunteers like my dad who go up there and do a much more efficient job for a tenth of the cost, and that cost is borne by us. So I just want people to know who are a bit concerned about hunters and shooters. We take this very seriously. We go out and sight in our rifles. We practice. We have the equipment. We have the skills because it's something that's part of our culture. This is what I grew up with. I grew up learning how to shoot because my dad thought it was an important skill for me to learn. I'm genuinely concerned that the next generation of Australians, especially in WA with the new gun laws that will spread to other states, we won't have the ability or the people with the skills to go out and do this important public service. So that's why I get quite upset when I see new gun laws and the government claiming it's for public safety. It's never about public safety. It's about taking away more of our freedoms, changing our culture from the top down, and then it destroys the culture and the next generation of Australians. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, well, there's plenty to be concerned about. And Ethan here's mentioned little Johnny Howard, little communist gun-grabbing Johnny. We all know that Johnny led the charge on removing it. So where I run into a lot of trouble with, certainly, we'll call them conservatives, but we all know that they're only Labor light, is it started with Howard, the gun-grabbing offensive, this determination to steal everybody. And I'm not a shooter. I don't shoot. I don't go out. I don't hunt. I should do it more. I don't. I haven't got time. But, the fact that a little communist prick like Johnny Howard would have the audacity to come out and use something like Port Arthur as a trigger to steal everybody's guns in the way he did was disgusting. And then where I really get upset is because then I watch the poor conservative people who I'm going to call them misguided, or they're just not as smart as they think they are, who come out and go, oh, yeah, but this is because Labor's in power. That's complete bullshit. Labor always exacerbates the bullshit that the Liberal Party comes out with. They just add kerosene onto it. And that's what your mate Papali is doing over there in communist WA. It's complete bullshit. But the Liberal Party are not going to be any better on gun rights than the Labor Party. And it's foolish to pretend that they will.
If I can butt in,
sure.
And I'll give you an example. Ex-Premier of WA.
Yeah.
What was his name?
McGowan.
Mark McGowan, yes.
He put out a Father's Day card for the state because he was such an arrogant dickhead.
Mark McGowan, apparently, allegedly, is working for an organisation called the Bondi Group. Right. Now, Joe Hockey, I think, is one of the principals of that group. They're profiting from situations such as the AUKUS agreement and such. So they don't care whether you're Labor or Liberal. Mark McGowan is now working with Joe Hockey.
Absolutely. And
now they've got 30 years. They've got 30 years to make sure that they get their share of $360 billion of an AUKUS agreement that'll probably be $500 billion and probably end up being $1 trillion. So anyone who thinks that there's any difference between Liberal and Labor, you're misguided. Anyone who thinks that they're doing anything other than lining their own pockets, queuing up so that they can get their turn at the trough, you're misguided. Anyone who I hope I don't offend anyone when I say this, but during COVID, I attended a local gun club and they were shooting clay targets. And I expected to experience some free thinking and some strong-minded people who were willing to weigh things up on the balance of the arguments.
Yeah.
What I found was a group of people who were banging the drum that we need to get vaccinated, we need to do the right thing, and the sooner we do the right thing and get vaccinated, the better. Now, I think everyone who's kept up with the news will realise that the vaccines weren't overly effective and there has been some very negative side effects. And I think a lot of these people were victims of just doing the right thing. It's almost It's almost as though gun owners are the most compliant people in the community, and they've actually lost the they're so hammered or so overridden that they've lost the ability of thought,
the ability or the desperation not to have their firearms license revoked ensures that they are going to just touch into this really minimalist. I've got to do as I'm told, or I'll take my guns. I've got to do as I'm told, or I'm not going to be allowed to go hunting. I've got to do as I'm told, I'm not going to be allowed to.
I will lose my livelihood, or I will lose my pastimes, or I'll lose my connect. There's a cultural connectivity. And Katie, like you've touched on this before, there is an element of I went hunting rabbits with my dad, and I want to keep doing it. I want to teach my kids and my grandkids to do the same stuff and partake in that type of stuff. There's something about the natural order of things and communing with nature, and even which way is the wind blowing from. We're going up a hill, we're going to hunt this particular animal. How do we do it efficiently? How do we do it effectively? You have to actually really tune into nature and understand the game. Understand it's a lot of stuff that people have lost.
Well, there's skills that I'd love to have and I don't have.
But even to, if you're going out hunting at night, you have to understand what the moon's doing. If you have to understand where the wind's going to be coming from. If you're going to plan a hunt and you're going to go into an area, you've got to understand that the wind's going to be coming from a certain direction, so you need to enter from another direction to have an effective hunt. There's so much connectivity with nature, and there's so much of I think that a lot of people in this 24/7 electrified world have lost contact with the natural rhythms and the natural relationships.
That happens when you think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
Yes, and
it's also when the government's made it so bloody hard to get a firearms license. So that's a deterrent, especially in WA, where you have to hand over private medical information now in order to be considered a fit and proper person. Your private medical records will be given to the police that they can store on a database, the same database that they use to doxter addresses on the front page of the Western Australian newspaper. Like, it's gotten to the point where people are deterred from learning these skills because it's too much of a risk now. They don't want to be on a police database. They certainly don't want to be going to gun rallies and getting photographed like they're planning to do in WA in the next few weeks. It's gotten to the point where we have to be secretive about what we do, to the point that the general public is scared of us because we are so secretive that they don't understand us, and the media can paint us as threats just because we own firearms. I feel like we've gotten us into this point now where we need to speak up and be proud of what we do. That's why I'm public about it.
You should absolutely speak up and be proud of it. And obviously, I've been supporting it for a long time, but we're seeing exactly the same thing at the moment with the tobacco wars. The government has demonised, and I'm not a smoker, I've never been a smoker, but they've demonised and taxed and extorted people so viciously on cigarettes, which is a legal product, for as long as they have, to the point now we've got literal gang wars. We've got a bloke got shot, and he shot in the head the other day. Some bikie, whatever it was, some numbnuts. Good luck to him. If he made $1 squillion out of it and had a good time, I really don't care. But these guys are out there now having gang wars over cigarettes the same way they were having gang wars over alcohol in prohibition. And if the government is still so arrogant and stupid, which they always will be, which is why they should be shrunk at every opportunity, we're going to have gun owners going, well, I'm a legal gun owner. I haven't done anything wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with what I'm doing, and they're going to start hiding guns. And then we've got an even bigger problem, because again, you start demonising that. The price
clearly, there's no shortage of illegal firearms in Australia.
Oh, look, I have no doubt that the fellow shot the guy who got shot in the head the other day was definitely shot in the head by a bloke who went down, registered him, got his mental health check, went in, filed his paperwork, and then he went. Now, just so you know, guys, I'm going to go in and shoot old mate in the head. That's how it happens. Yes, you know, there's no the legal, law-abiding firearm owners aren't doing anything wrong. Same as, and I'm going to have to go into bat for the smokers who are now, and I know plenty of them, who are running around desperately going into these tobacconists and everything that's popping up everywhere, which is big news down here. There's about 5 of them. There's more tobacconists here than there is bloody car parks. And they're running around desperate they're feeding a very addictive habit. They're feeding a very, very expensive habit if you do it legally, or you can kind of go in and feed your what's a legal habit that's been basically extorted to the point that it's illegal. You have to go and do something kind of illegal to be able to support the habit you've got, because there's no chance in blue hell with life as expensive as it is for people now to pay for that. And I had the debate regarding cannabis. My aunt, she's famous enough now anyway, but her husband got cancer, and we had a big discussion about it. Fortunately, he died fairly, I'm going to say efficiently. Geez, I sound cold when I say that, but he got it. It was not treatable. He died in a pretty good order, which after watching Dad take 8 years, I'm kind of all for efficiency in that space. Sounds a bit harsh, but that's how I am. We had the discussion at the time. Now, my uncle would never have in a million years been willing to take cannabis to ease his cancer pain. Would never, because it would have made him a criminal. Now we all know, I mean, there's legal cannabis shops in America, and you can buy certain amounts of it in Australia and blah, 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 blah. The way he was raised, you're a criminal if you take that stuff. And I sort of, the conversation we had went along the lines of, if he had got to the point with pain and, the feelings of cancer, never had it, lucky me. But what would have happened is, if he had got to the point where he wanted to try this stuff, he would have went to his wife, who would have then come to me, and then I would have gone and done something that's arguably criminal, and I would have went and got him some weed. Not because I have any interest in weed or whatever, but if you've got a guy who's cancerous, if my old man had have asked me for weed while he was in his chair, I would have went and got it. And if that makes me a criminal, I would have been quite happy to tell him to bash it up their ass. It's the same issues with cigarettes, firearms. Prohibition is the absolute worst thing a government can inflict on a society. Prohibition is just destructive. It feeds the black market, feeds the criminal elements. Those blokes aren't shooting each other down in Melbourne over $20. They're shooting each other over millions of dollars.
Yeah, with firearms that aren't registered and firearms they've gained off the black market.
And they all should be wearing T-shirts while they're shooting each other saying proudly sponsored by the Australian fucking government. Because that's the gang that they're basically doing this criminal activity on behalf of, even though most of them don't realise it.
The US, the people of the US and their constitution entrenches the right to bear arms, and they defend that wholeheartedly. People hold up the US as a gun-toting, very violent society, but anecdotally from people who've returned from the US recently, they say that the majority of people are extraordinarily polite and very civil. I just wish we could get the full story, the accurate story, and a proper portrayal of the situation, and not the inflammatory
media beat up.
Yeah, there's so many people in society who need firearms on a day-to-day basis, and it's a very matter of fact. It's very the best example. And how often have you heard it said, Katie, that you used to be able to walk into Kmart, and this was when I was a kid, and there would be cricket bats, tennis rackets, and a 22 and a fishing rod. There was tennis balls and bullets, and what I mean? And it was that matter of fact. And I don't know what's happened to Australia to have, I'll tell you one thing that really concerns me is if when you can sit there and play a video game and you can unload and do the most heinous and violent things in a video game, surely that is more of a societal issue than someone who's taking an over and under shotgun and going and shooting sporting clays on a range for a weekend with grown-up people who are all there. You're
playing these games where you can, not only shoot people, but you can rape women, you can bash women, you can do whatever you like in these games. But hang on, these guys that are, strictly following the rules, even as overcooked as they are to own firearms, are a danger.
It's a hyper-violence, and it's hyper-violence. It's glorified hyper-violence, and there are no consequences.
No consequences for most things.
The one thing I think that responsible firearm owners do realise is that there are consequences. You own that projectile always. You own that projectile from the minute you load that into the firearm to the minute that projectile stops moving. These are serious matters. These are serious things. My dad was a veteran, and he used to get offended if, as kids, we would even point a cap gun at him. He was so gun aware and so aware of the damage that misuse of firearms can cause that he drummed it into us that they're not to be messed with. There's a level of responsibility that you must take on when you want to possess and use these implements, and if you do it in a proper manner with the respect that they're due and you own the consequences, then it's a very sensible and a grown-up thing to do. I really resent the way that it gets demonized and the way that the American the movies, the idea that someone can go and shoot off about 15,000 rounds in a.
I'm the only guy that can do that. Just me.
I'm telling you, they need about a B double full of ammunition to be able to and
get close to the bullshit they hype it up.
There's not a guy physically capable that could actually tote that.
Oh, I could. Sure. I'm sure.
So
okay, just while we're tracking it, Chris has come up with a good one. So for the people who do like to put questions and comments and things, I do always try to sort of give everybody a little bit of airtime if it's a legit question. If you're from an anonymous profile, we decided, Buggy, I'm not going to bother if you can't do it under your own.
You got to own.
Yeah, if you want to be man or woman enough to just have something to say, I'm happy enough for you to say it, and I'll share it even if you're calling me nasty names. I've done that many times.
Yeah.
But Chris here has a pretty reasonable comment. Kate, what do you reckon?
Sometimes shooters are their own worst enemies. Some shooters are so submissive they actually support the government oppression. We need to all unite our freedom parties to get rid of the current culprits in power. Amen, Chris. I agree. And the one thing that I've been very disappointed and upset about is the leadership from our shooting organisations. Not one shooting organisation has donated to my legal action fundraiser, even though I have asked them. They are all putting all of their membership money into a political solution that will not come this time in WA. Labor has such a majority, they will be returned to government, even if they lose a few seats in the lower house. I have bad news for you. They are going to get back in again because of the huge swings against Liberal and Nationals last time. There is no political solution. The only solution I see at the moment is taking these laws before a judge and getting a ruling on if they have gone too far. And I already have a list from my lawyers saying where we can challenge them. So I've been very disappointed in the lack of leadership from the shooting organisations, and they are part of the problem. I don't know if you agree with me, Irv, but these organisations go to the table and sit down and negotiate our rights away with government so they can protect their organisations. An example, mandatory gun club membership in WA when these laws come into effect. So a lot of hunters are going to be forced to join a club when they don't want to join a club. They just want to go out and hunt. But that's what the organisations in that state have done. And it's across the board. It's not just WA. They are corrupt. They are sitting at the table with their snouts in the trough, getting money from the government to support their own organisations instead of standing up for the rights of shooters. And that's one thing that keeps me up at night because I'm up against the establishment. It is to the point now in Australia the organisations do not represent the shooters, the individual shooters. They represent their own self-interest and what they can get out of the government. That's one thing that I'm disgusted at, the state of our shooting organisations in Australia. In America, I know you spoke about that before, they have organisations like the Gun Owners of America, FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition. They stand up, they take things to court as soon as something gets brought into a state, they are straight to court. This is what they do in America. Yes, they have their Second Amendment. We still have rights in Australia too. We still have things that limit the government on what they can do, which I believe, from my lawyer's advice, they have overreached in WA. So the other thing I'd say just about America quickly is Dr. John Lott Jr., who is a criminologist over there. He's done studies into where the shootings occur in America that we hear about. It's the poor suburbs, it's gang wars, it's only in very small neighborhoods where most of this gun crime occurs. So it's very centralized, and the issues is always, like Dean said, about turf wars, tobacco wars, trading of children, for fuck's sake. Like that's what the shootings in America, that's all what that's about. So it's an exhausting battle. But
the other thing I'd add there on that, just the American stuff, and I'm not. Let's be fair, Kate. We've both come up under the wing of former Senator David Lionhelm in a lot of ways, and learned a lot of our policy through there. I certainly learned a bucket ton. But the other thing that a lot of people forget when they try to compare Australia to America regarding gun violence, gun crime, gun whatever. Australia's got 26, 27 million people. America's got 350 million people. Of course, there's going to be a hell of a lot more goings-ons there, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. So trying to compare those numbers is just ludicrous. It's comparing apples and pork sandwiches. It's just there's no correlation whatsoever, and people need to get a bit of a grip on reality. Now, in saying all that, I've got a couple of little ideas there that I will work with you on a bit later on, Kate, with your legal action and a few of those things. But addressing Chris's comment regarding uniting the small freedom parties. Now, we went through.
Well, back to Kate's main point, and look, we have to really address this. In the US, they've got the NRA, the National Riflemen's Association, and it is a very powerful political organisation. In Australia, we haven't got one unifying body. In New South Wales, for example, we've got the SSAA, Sporting Shooters Association of Australia, we've got Field and Game Australia, we've got Sporting Clays Australia, we've got Australian Clay Target Association, we've got
Shooters Union.
There's so many, but they're all these little tiny disjointed, and I don't know how many times that you talk to someone and they say, wouldn't it be better if we had one affiliation to a national body and then we have our little drop-off memberships to whatever flavour of pastime. It might be long-range, large calibre target shooting. It might be small bore target shooting. It might be down the line target shooting. It might be clay target shooting, field and game type. You know what I mean, Kate? I think
pistol shooting, IPSC. I'm a pistol shooter, so I had to throw them in.
But we lack a unifying body, and we lack a unifying voice, I think. And don't you find that it just seems to be nepotism and little power plays and little groups of Hitlers in all of these little associations, and no one seems to have the wherewithal. Like I had so much hope for shooters, fishers, and farmers.
Yeah.
But they haven't managed to.
Well, you just landed on exactly what I was going to say about uniting the freedom parties. The same problems that stop all those organisations from somewhat forming a powerful coalition is the same reason that the small minor parties, the freedom parties, as people labelled them after COVID. I don't think Kate and I could have been any more involved in the Freedom Party movement during COVID than what we were, sort of relative to our relevant states. During the last federal election, I was sort of arguably the director of the New South Wales Liberal Democrat campaign. I did some work with the United Australia Party. To be fair, the United Australia Party candidate in the Riverina electorate paid for my cornflakes. He had far more money than I did, and Clive had paid for all his. So he just went, well, I'll buy you cornflakes. Sweet, thanks. Great guy, no problem. Then there's the One Nation. The One Nation candidate didn't want to work with us, but One Nation as a whole sometimes were happy enough to have debates and discussions. I also had a period of time with, Ricardo Bossi and his gang of freedom fighters or whatever. I don't know what's happened with Ricardo lately. Seems to have gone off a bit of the deep end. I really don't know. I haven't spoken to him for quite some time. But there were periods there where people would say to me, well, why don't they all unite? You just all need to get on the same page. About the only thing we all agreed on was COVID. And that we didn't support the mandates, and everything else fundamentally we would come unstuck. Annie and Adam better do a shot. But we would come unstuck based on, a lot of power plays, a lot of personalities. Pauline Hanson's One Nation without Pauline is done. Take at the time Craig Kelly and Clive Palmer out of United Australia. It was done. None of the candidates could speak on their own. Ricardo was obviously a bit of a one-man party / movement, and I certainly agreed with him on a lot of stuff. I agreed with UAP on a lot of stuff. One Nation, I can still agree with on a lot of stuff. And even though I'm not even an active member of the Liberal Democrats, now the Libertarian Party, one thing they never did to me was ever tell me what I could and couldn't say. Never, ever sort of intervened and said, well, you must sell out this part of your principle to do whatever. They absolutely let me free rein. And if I was to ever join another political party in Australia, I would do it. Shooters, fishers and farmers were very, very difficult to get to the table to agree with anything. Their candidates in the local area, when I'd reach out to all of them, certainly locally. How about we do our best to partner up on preferences and to work together on policy, share volunteers, share resources. Some were very, very willing to do it, but overall, they were, again, little fiefdoms at war with each other all the time. And while they could agree on one particular issue, instead of agreeing on that one issue and go, okay, let's just focus on that. Yeah, but I hate you on this and you're a bastard on that. And it was the same sort of thing. And it's just never going to fully work. Otherwise, what would happen is they'd end up that group, whoever's the driving personality or whatever, and you end up with what the Liberal Party's currently got, which is a watered down, spineless shit show with no principles, no courage, and no capability. The only reason they're still there is because people are harrowing back to the days of Menzies, where they seem to have a bit of a direction, and it made kind of sense. But Menzies would have to be rolling over in his grave looking at what the hell's left of the Liberal Party. And where we're at, where people are looking at Dutton now going, oh, Dutton's just like Trump. I want to absolutely piss my pants laughing, because he's not the dog shit on Trump's boot. And he hasn't got the balls to do anything that, well, he doesn't say he's going to do anything. That's the best part about Dutton, is he doesn't promise to do anything because he knows he's going to do fuck all. The only reason he's going to be the next Prime Minister, unless he upsets the Greens in the Liberal Party, is because Albo's so shit. That's the political side of that, Chris. That's why it'll never work. It can't work. They're all driven by too many little mini personalities, and it's just how it rolls.
Well, I have to say, Dean, I have a lot of respect for the Liberal Democrats in New South Wales. That's where I started my journey working for Senator David Leyonhjelm. That's where I became a Libertarian. Unfortunately, I didn't have the same experience as you during the federal election. I was threatened with disendorsement because of my pro-gun campaign. You might remember me calling you very upset when I heard that they wanted to disendorse me because there were lead Senate candidates, very high profile, who didn't like my principles, even though they are fully libertarian principles. So that's why I'm no longer with the party, especially in WA, with their lead candidate for the upcoming election is very uncomfortable talking about guns. And that's something, if you're not going to talk about like this free speech, you can't defend free speech without the means to. So your whole argument that they love banging on about on Twitter about how they're the free speech saviors of Australia, I'm sorry, but the next question is, how do you defend free speech? And they don't want to talk about it. So that's why I'm not involved with the party anymore, because it's not the party of Leyonhjelm, and they don't share my principles and stance on gun rights.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough. And look, we all know I walked away there moderately, nearly 2 years ago now. And I still got a lot of friends in the joint. I still sort of, that sort of thing. But I have no current inclination to step back into a party and the party system. I don't think that the party system is going to work long term for us.
Well, that's the other thing, Dean. People don't understand that you need to change culture and people's opinion before you get into the political battle. People seem to think that running for politics and being a candidate is where you make change. No, you actually have to get out of behind your computer, go out into communities, visit gun ranges, visit weed shops, visit people and have conversations face to face, which is where you can make the change. Like election campaigns, people get very excited and they think that's the solution. It's not the silver bullet. We have a lot of work to do with the general public about educating them about liberty before we get to a point in Australia where our politicians value what we do. That's where you and Councillor Irving are doing such great work as individuals, rather than being used by a party who just want to focus on getting elected.
Oh, and there's great value in getting elected as well, but you've got to have the people with the principles in there to execute.
Well, that's it. But there's no point being elected if you've sold yourself out.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Look, I backed you pretty hard to get elected. If you had got in there and then all of a sudden changed all your stances, I would have very, very quickly and publicly come out and said, yeah, look, I've changed my mind on this guy. I won't.
But I'm tipping the only reason I got elected because of it was the stance that I had on things. And,
absolutely.
And you've got to be staunch on that stuff. And I did a bit of background on Katie a little while ago, and I watched the in-depth interview with Aussie in Queensland, and he's talking about the same things, Aussie Reviews in Queensland, as you're talking about in WA. And like you say, this stuff, Australia's a funny place in that we've got a federal government that can enact legislation, and we've got all these little states that can enact legislation. It was interesting during COVID to realise just how much power the states had and how they could go and tell the federal government, no, we're going to do it this way because we can. But I think a lot of people it's part of the trick or the shell game that these leaders are running, where they keep people so under the pump, so close to the breadline, so petrified of the world that they can't actually say, no, stop. It's so difficult. And anyone who went through COVID and tried to have a different opinion to what mainstream media and the government and the health authorities were just jamming down on people, it was so difficult to resist. And I think in the end, the figures indicated that there was about 10% of the population were in a position to actually have an alternate view. The other 90% were either up to their neck in debt, they didn't have the balls, they just didn't have the wherewithal. No, but seriously, like, I have to do what I'm told because I've got a mortgage I can't jump over. I have to do what I'm told because I've got 3 kids I've got to feed. I have to do
gun to your head.
I have to do what I'm told because they're going to give me the sack if I don't. And Australians, I think, have lost a lot of that. There was a time when if a boss said to an Australian, I want you to do something you don't agree with, the bloke would turn around and say, or the lady would turn around and say, no, stick it up your ass.
Not doing it.
That's gone. I think we've become so compliant, so overwhelmed.
Our backbone's broken as a country. Where the Aussie spirit's in tatters. And one of my favourite quotes of all time happens to come from Erwin Rommel, who I know that's a nasty German guy, but from all intents and purposes, he was just a general.
The Desert Fox.
Yeah. And if he had to take hell, he'd take the Australians to take it. He'd want the Australians with him to take it. And if he had to hold it, he'd use the Kiwis. Now, that says a lot about just how high. And if you look at him, you might go, obviously, he was with German Nazi. Wrong team, dude. But, he was a German general. He did what he's again, he did what he was told. And to be fair, I don't know if he participated in any atrocities. He just drove them tanks over the desert and was game on.
And he was a very good strategic leader. And
he was a military great. And he came out of all that period of war with such high regard for Aussie and Kiwi soldiers. And now we're sitting here where we shit our pants at the slightest, nod from some idiot politician. And I've met many of them, as I'm sure you've all met. What are they going to do? They are absolute useless. Most can't tie their own shoes. Most can barely function on a day-to-day basis. Most of them take them out of that public purse, that public trough, that public sector, and they are useless.
No, but seriously, and this is coming back to Katie's point, and it's the point I made before. The level of responsibility that someone has to take on to be a responsible gun owner is high. And you have to be a very stable and considered person. It's not
my issue though is who's deciding who's stable.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
which shady human trafficker in government's making this decision?
No, but when I say that, I mean you've got to be a sensible person who doesn't take undue risk and is, well, sure, the term is a fit and proper person, and I think that's probably a pretty apt term. I think
it's a great term until you go, who makes that decision on what basis?
Now that's probably the part that needs to be debated. But seriously, I don't think it's up for debate that 99.9% of gun owners are fit and proper people. They put the safe in, they do all the paperwork, they're extraordinarily compliant, they secure their ammunition, they tick every box under the sun. They really are. As a group of society, if you had to find a group of people, if you said, okay, well, you have to do this, they do it. If you have to do that, they do it. They're the sort of people that actually tick the boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
makes me sad.
No, but to have them demonised. No, look, seriously.
I'm serious. Makes me sad how compliant and how
when you consider the level of responsibility required to be an effective, responsible gun owner, I think that they do need to be sensible people. So, but who decides that? Well, I think there needs to be some very serious consideration given to that.
No one on Epstein's list. Nobody on
No.
Diddy's party list. Nobody
And
who.
you can see that. You can see how.
If you think men can get pregnant, you can't be in that fucking mood.
You can see
that's
how
not happening.
How the wind will change direction, and all of a sudden, the group that were unloved are now loved, and all the rest of it. We understand that. I suppose the point I'm trying to make is this: that I think they're the wrong people who are being victimised.
Absolutely.
I think as a group, they need to consider ways to support each other. I'll certainly be donating, and please, if we can put up the link to the
absolutely. Put up the.
I'll be certainly throwing $100, one of them big green ones, into that fund.
Oh,
because
thank you.
No, seriously, I want to see this stuff tested. I really do, because I know that the similarity between the WA courts and the New South Wales courts are very minor.
Yep.
And I think that it's well and truly worthwhile to have the questions asked. And we need to put the questions to these decision makers. The reason I'm on council is because I question. And the community want me to question, and they support me. And every time I'm downtown, they just pat me on the back and say, keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. It's the first time in a long time someone's been asking these people what they're up to and why.
Thanks,
Right,
Steve.
So there's the link for Kate's GoFundMe, Fight Western Australia's gun laws in the courts. Anybody who does see some value in that, which should be every free-thinking Australian on the planet, if they've got any brains at all, as far as I'm concerned, should be donating some money to that fund. It is a very, very important fight that Kate's undertaking, and knowing you as well as I do, I'm sure you'll keep fighting until, I don't know, one of us is dead. I'm fairly confident there. You're an absolute champion of liberty and for firearm owners, and everybody should feel very lucky to have you, mate.
Yeah, liberty, firearm owners is one part of it, but the freedom to act as a human and have those basic rights, it does come into that whole. Who's to say?
Well,
that you're worthy and you're not.
Well, I reckon we got some local folks who think that they're in a position to pick and choose who's worthy and who's not.
Oh, well,
who is more respectable in the more respectable families in town and things of that nature.
Yeah.
We do get a bit of that. There is a little bit of localised housekeeping issues we're going to tackle here, Katie. Obviously your opinion could well be very, very valid to discuss some of them, of course. But as far as the firearms topics, thank you very much for sharing, and thank you for picking that fight. I'll always be, well, relatively on the other side of the country, but I'll be right here. What is it, Mark Antony and Cleopatra for the next 40 years?
That's right.
That was the running joke for many years of the and it hasn't really hasn't ceased to exist along those ways, even though you're now a happily married woman, and I've been accosted and commandeered. How lucky is that girl? I'm telling you.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. You're both bloody legends. It was so great to meet you both in tomorrow. I have to come back. I loved it there. I had the best time. I had a bit of a hangover the next day when it was 40 bloody degrees the next morning. And thank you, Ryder, for letting us sleep in your bed. I know he was very upset about that, but yeah, thank you. I'm going hard with this fight. I think it's the best help I can be, seeing as I'm not running in the political race anymore. I want to get it before a judge. I want to flood the courts because it's gone too far. So thanks for having me on the show, and I'll have to join you guys again soon. And Irv, I'll have to get you on my show as well for a chat.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Absolutely.
All the best.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thank you, and thanks for your donation. Kate. Appreciate it.
Talk soon, Kate. Bye.
Bye.
Robin, WA Gov obviously considers law-abiding gun owners as potential criminals. Yeah, mate, I would, as far as saying, all governments like to consider all, in Australia particularly, all law-abiding firearms owners are potential criminals. That is absolutely,
it's something
where they live at.
And it's also,
pisses me off.
If you were to broach the same subjects with a person who has a heavy vehicle license, like a truck driver, you would find that most of those guys feel as though they're criminals in waiting.
Yep.
Every day they get in the truck, they feel as though they are being targeted unfairly, and all they're doing is trying to make a quid and just do the right thing and do things safely. But I know there's a huge amount of people who are leaving the industry, in the heavy vehicle industry, and they are sensible, responsible people who are just being forced out by overzealous. A lot of it's being led by the corporates, to squeeze out the smaller operators and make it virtually untenable for a smaller operator to exist. But we know that that's occurring nationally, internationally.
There's a big difference between, look,
the corporations of the world don't like small business.
Absolutely. And no matter which government's in, and they say they like small business, they're full of shit because they're absolutely in cahoots.
Yes.
And
they really do like large business.
Massive difference between being a capitalist, a free market capitalist, and a corporatist. And I'm a free market capitalist 100%, but I absolutely detest these corporatists, and I'd like to rat back and stack them and
I think
put them out of business.
The small business and the community and the small village idea is the most free that you can possibly be.
Yeah.
And I think we've given a lot of that up. We've even given up a lot of the ability to grow our own food. And once you lose the ability to feed yourself and house yourself, then you are at the mercy of
whoever's feeding you.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. You are a slave.
Now, homework.
You did a little bit of homework.
I did some homework. We've touched on.
You gave the homework to me, and you've done all of it. I love it. This is how it should be.
Touched on the because the comment was made that California is one of the highest taxing jurisdictions in the US.
Yep.
And I raised the question at the time. I wonder how that compares to Australia.
Yes. And you've done extra homework, and you found
some more
information.
Last week, my information was incomplete because I quoted the income tax rates that the state of California imposed. Further investigation also uncovers that the federal government in the US also imposes a federal income tax. So in Australia, the federal government imposes income tax. The states don't impose income tax per se.
Yep.
In the US, the federal government and the states both impose income tax, and they've got their other fundamental taxes. Now, have a drink on me. I found an interesting document that will give you a little bit of insight into how it works. And it's based on an income in the US of $57,952. Now, if you get the Australian dollar, US dollar exchange rate, and insert appropriately, that gives you an Australian equivalent income of $93,500. So we're talking about an Australian income equivalent of about 93.5 grand. Now, I think the average Australian income is about that 80, a bit over 80 grand.
Yeah,
so we're within the ballpark.
Upper middle class at the very least.
We're in the ballpark here of, a good earn.
Yep.
So in the US, in US dollars, in California, the income tax in Australian dollars that you would be paying combined, federal and state, is about $18,000.
Right.
In Australia, the federal government, I went onto a tax calculator for the ATO, and I punched in 93,500 Aussie pesos.
Yeah.
And it spat me back a figure of $20,854 in income tax you would be paying in Australia.
Yep.
As opposed to about 18 grand in the US. So it's about 3 grand's difference.
Yep.
On your 93 grand.
On that comparable.
So
how do you reckon it's going to go if Trump abolishes the income tax, other than the fact that I will absolutely consider moving to the US?
Well,
I don't like being raped for what I earn.
Can you, when you look at these figures though, it's extraordinary. Sales tax in US dollar equivalent is only $1,475.
Yep.
That's GST.
Yep.
What sort of GST do you think you'd be paying if you earned 93,500 Aussie dollars?
I'm sure I'm paying a hell of a lot more than that as
There'd
is.
be a shit ton. They reckon the fuel tax that someone would be paying. So they're talking about a total estimated tax burden here. Property tax, $1,921. Fuel tax, $255. I still think, looking at these figures and doing all the analysis, that Australia is still, well, the analysis that you guys did with the Lib Dems at the time, what was the,
I'll find it. I've still got the book.
what was
I
the
held on to
ball,
it.
but was it almost 40%?
Worked out to be about 56%. And that was on the Victorian population. So all in, all accounted for, the whole shooting match came in about 56%, if I recall.
Well, the US is nothing like that.
Right.
You know, and this is where I think Australians are missing the point. I think we really are one of the most overtaxed, overgoverned, overcontrolled.
Careful, I'll start doing what those religious folk do when they're getting really excited, and I'll hit the floor. Because, damn Skippy, we are absolutely raped and pillaged. We haven't actually left the convict system yet, and we're basically just here as overpaid serfs for our ruling class.
Okay, so I think we can put that one to bed. We know that Australia's taxes are way higher than California's.
The Yanks started a civil war over a 3% tax, if I recall.
Yes.
And they grabbed, was it King George? And they said, listen, you pompous dickhead, you thief, pack your shit, stay out of our country. We're running our own show now, and we don't need dickheads like you. And King George went, well, I'm not happy with that. He picked a fight back. And the next thing you know, they've got Boston Tea Parties. They're rioting. They're, absolutely going, we will not be stolen from. Yeah. And I guess, to be fair, that's why they do take, there's still an element in America that takes such offence to being raped and pillaged, even to the degree they are, because they fought a war for it. They fought their independence. We haven't fought for shit in this country.
No, and when they sat down after that fight, they drafted their constitution.
And they went, how do we stop rulers and overlords being a bunch of pricks?
Yes.
That was what it was based on. Our constitution comes out of being ruled, we're basically a bunch of criminals.
It basically tells us what we're allowed to do.
We're a bunch of criminals and we've been dumped out here on an island, and these are the rules you guys get. We'll let you have this. You can maybe have some bread, and if you've been good, we'll give you some butter. Whereas the Yanks, it was a different thing. They built a country. They kind of were ruled over. They decided the answer was, fuck off. Not doing that. That's not happening. Get on your little boat and go home. We're quite happy to roll on our own, and we will fight you for the privilege. Australians, obviously, we fought in some wars, and we've been spectacular. I mentioned it earlier. Our soldiers have been amazing, but as a country, we haven't had to fight for our independence. Though arguably we should. We've just been this gilded slave. Really, we've stayed there. We haven't come out of the convict mindset. We're still stuck. Oh, hang on. Are we allowed? Whose permission do we have to ask? Yes, sir. No, sir.
Now, this is where I get into trouble at council. Now, you'll recall that there was a project that was undertaken, and it was obviously clearly designed to adversely affect my business.
Yep.
And we discussed it last week or the week before regarding a job that we'd done, and we weren't given an opportunity to provide a replacement. And I posed some questions to the general manager regarding that.
Yeah.
Now, you will recall the general manager's response was along the lines of, they told me who did the job. They told me when the job was done. Now, we weren't given an opportunity to quote this project.
Yeah.
So the general manager is trying to claim that I've got some pecuniary interest in a matter where we didn't quote it. The job's been done and paid for.
Yeah, right.
And they're trying to say that there must be some pecuniary interest. Now, Council's Model Code of Conduct provides guidelines on conflicts of interest, both pecuniary and non-pecuniary. So blah, 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 blah.
Anytime I see a government letter, it's all blah, 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 blah.
Well,
with my brain done, fuck off. Don't tell me what to do.
The key point here is you are currently registered as a contracted sign writer for council. If you were to be provided with the specific price of a competitor's work, it is reasonable to assume that you could use this information for future financial gain when quoting for work for council.
I have a question. Now, since it's public monies anyways, all these jobs are public monies, would that not be disclosed, and should it not be disclosed? Oh yeah, we spent X amount of money on this sign project. We spent this.
But if you're selling a car,
surely there's an itemised account somewhere of who spent what, regardless of who.
If you're selling a car,
I do that a bit.
Yes, if you're selling a car to council,
yes,
and they have to publish the contracted price that the competitor sold the car to council.
Yeah,
you've got the choice next time of going in with a lesser price.
I can lower the price, or I can go, yeah, it's council, let's up the price,
But you could go in with a lower price.
Yeah.
Now, is that going to lead to a financial gain for yourself? Well, it may not. You might be selling it at a loss.
I'll tell you what, sometimes that does happen in the automotive industry, I can assure you.
Sometimes that happens in all sorts of industries.
Yes.
The point that I think we need to really seriously consider is this. Council has to publish the contracts that they enter into and the prices that they pay.
As they should. They are using ratepayer money.
If you go onto council's website, you can find all the current Class 1 contracts. These are contracts over $150,000 that council have entered into.
Class 1 contracts.
Now, for example, Robert Ferguson Management Proprietary Limited on Old Racecourse, Young Road, Temora, New South Wales 266, provides contract partners. So he provides these services to Coolum Shire and Junee Shire also. Now, the duration of the contract runs for 5 years. So from the 1st of the 7th, 2020 to the 30th of the 6th, 2025. So it's only going to run out in June this year, this contract. Now, the contract description is for weed management. Now,
weed management?
On behalf of Riverina Eastern Noxious Weed Authority, incorporating Temora, Coolum and Junee Shire councils.
I haven't seen them at my place. I've got some there.
The tendered amount, and I would think that the tendered amount is specific to Temora because it's Temora relative contracts here.
Yeah.
$260,844 a year.
I can manage weeds for that.
Well, that's what, about 1.3 million over 5 years.
It's not a bad dig
for Temora.
Yeah, I've got a weed spray.
Method of tendering. It was an open method of tendering. Criteria of tender evaluation: price, experience, capability, and availability. Provision for renegotiation. Amount reviewed annually. First review, 1st of July 2021 by CPI. So apparently this goes up every year by CPI. Provision for operational and maintenance services, yes. Okay. Let's look at another one. MJ and JA Reardon, 13 Beatty Street, Temora, New South Wales 266. 1st of July 2023 to March 2024. Bundawarra Centre alterations and additions. Total contract price $266,752.73 plus GST. It was an open method of tendering.
Yep.
Only tenderer. And they were chosen on past performance.
Right.
Provision for renegotiation, variation of contract, no.
So obviously the idea is do the job and then it's done.
Operational maintenance services, no.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have to go very far to find what council are paying for specific services, and then if you wish to tender against them, then you can set your price up to tender against
Tender
them.
against, and if you want to compete on
So,
price, which
quite seriously, this comment is an absolute load of hogwash, isn't it?
that sounds like a load of shit. But
If you were to be provided with the specific price of a competitor's work, it's reasonable to assume that you could use this information for future financial gain when quoting for work for council. Bullshit. If Fulton Hogan say, we're going to do bitumen at so much per so much, then if it's up to Boral, they can see that contract price. When they want to put a contract price in, they can see what it was done at last time, and they can put a price in accordingly.
We can beat that.
Absolutely.
So,
So if you're a fuel provider, a bulk fuel provider for council, there's a litre rate.
yeah.
If you want to go in under that, you do your sums.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. And there are multiple ways to compete too. You don't. It may not be on price. You may come in and go, oh, my work is better.
Absolutely.
I can do it
do
faster.
it quicker.
I can do it
More
better.
efficient.
I can.
And I will give you this level of testing or that level of accreditation or that level of surety.
Absolutely. There's a million different things that fight on other than just price.
But
Prices are one
the
very
idea that
minor value.
the general manager will not tell me the value of a contract is absurd. Now, consequently, I have had to avail myself of the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act and file yet another formal access application for this information.
Which is going to come back with, well, we don't see any reason why you can't share that information. Why are you being such dickheads? Now, they won't write why are you being such dickheads on the thing, but I can guarantee you whoever's filling out the form is going, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Look,
why do
no, but seriously, why?
I'm serious. That's what they're thinking.
Why do I have to spend $30 of my hard-earned, fill out a friggin' form, and I've sent it off? Now, believe it or not, they have to consult with a third party now. It's going to take 6 weeks for them to come back with a yes or no.
Yeah.
To provide the information I've requested.
Yeah.
But seriously, the only grounds that they can argue not to give the information to me is that it's against the public interest.
Yeah.
Please try
and justify that competitive free market.
There is no serious
it's bullshit.
Grounds that they can possibly defend that action. It's disgusting. It is so absolutely disgusting waste of my time and money to have to go to those links to get basic information out of this disgusting organisation that calls itself Temora Shire Council. It is atrocious. That is completely fucked. Why? Why the fuck do I have to go and spend my time and my money to get the most basic of information?
Particularly as an elected official.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Like, as an elected official.
But even still, this is shit.
I should be able to get it if I could be bothered to ask for it.
They're spending our money.
Yes, if I wanted to know
it's
about
not a secret. You have to tell us.
Yep, absolutely.
For fuck's sake.
If I wanted to know, I would go through it, right? And as an elected official, you have been elected with a significant percentage of the community supported you in being in that room because we trust you to be our eyes and ears in that
I'll tell you
building.
why I'm interested in what that job cost. The simple fact is, we did a suite of 9 signs.
Right.
Back in 2018, approximately.
Okay, yeah.
This job that I'm inquiring about is the restoration, refurbishment of one of these particular signs that was damaged apparently when some roadworks were done.
Right.
Now, we weren't, as a company, given an opportunity even to quote for that work.
Quote to fix your own work.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that seems.
So we supplied the 9 original signs that were the project.
Yeah.
One of these signs has been damaged, and we weren't even given the opportunity to quote for that work. Now, I want to know who did the work. I want to know when the work was done. I want to know how much they paid for that work.
Fair call.
Is that unrealistic, unreasonable?
I've got no problem with these people at councils, governments
I've
answering
got
every
no
goddamn
problems with
question.
anyone from the community or from council who wants to come up to my workshop and investigate any job that I've ever provided for council, and I'm quite happy to provide time and materials on every single project. There is no magical mystery number.
Secret squirrel business.
Now, just the last thing I need to touch on tonight is the most ridiculous thing. At what point does someone actually stick up for the average boots on the ground councillor? You'll recall that I'm now the proud owner of 5 codes of conduct complaints or investigations.
6 after tonight, there'll be 6 for sure.
Whatever. And you will recall that on the 19th of December, I received notification and a notice of investigation from an individual from a company that Temora Shire Council had engaged to.
I wonder what he costs.
Shit tons. We had the figures and we've discussed the figures of the previous 4 codes of conduct. Now, council have spent.
This guy might be doing it at a discount. No,
council
maybe
have spent
a bundle rate.
to date $70,000 on codes of conduct investigation into myself.
Yeah.
Now, they're quite happy. They can't afford fireworks at Christmas time, but they can afford codes of conduct. They can't afford lots of things, but they can afford codes of conduct.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But the thing, now you'll recall that I did say in my letter of the 20th, and I sent this letter to the investigator. I sent this letter to the general manager of Temora Shire Council, who initiated the investigation and who has engaged this investigator. And I also sent this letter to the Minister for Local Government.
Yeah.
And I did say,
bugger off and leave me alone. I'm not participating in your shit.
To preserve my own health and well-being, I will not be participating in the process you have commenced. Please do not email me on any email account, either council or business. Do not phone or attempt to make any other contact with me. Do not write to me. Do not approach me. Now that's pretty. I'm not participating in this bullshit.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do.
Black and white. Go and circle jerk in the corner. Not interested in participating with you silly communist dickheads.
Well, on Tuesday, I received an email with a letter attached from the investigator, in spite of this correspondence.
Yeah.
At what point does harassment?
Oh, look, it's clearly it should qualify as harassment. Well, I don't know. Where's this guy hang out? I'll start sending him letters. I can send some pretty mean letters.
I've followed up basically with a letter to the general manager of Temora Shire Council today, and I basically said, look, in spite of my requests, I've received further correspondence from the person you've engaged.
Yeah.
Please direct that individual to cease contacting me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I be any more clear?
I find it very, very clear. It seems very clear and concise.
That is black and there's no grey.
No grey area. I'm not talking to you.
Don't ring me. Don't email me. Don't talk.
I'm not talking to you. I'm not obligated to talk to you. You don't owe me anything. I don't owe you any money. Bugger off. Leave me alone.
But is this person?
I don't care who you are.
They haven't got the enforcement powers of the New South Wales Police Force. They haven't got any sort of enforcement powers.
They're just people who are parasiting off the.
These people who investigate, code of conduct investigators employed by scumbag companies who suck the guts out of
the taxpayer dollar via
the residents and ratepayers.
Councils.
So we've spent $70,000 on codes of conduct, and council are doubling down again and spending more money.
Be careful, Councillor Irvine. Be careful.
Well, quite simply, I can't even talk about this. This is supposed to be confidential. No, it needs to be spoken about.
No more secrets. All secrets are secrets
council,
for Puff Daddy and Jeffrey Epstein.
If the mayor wants to make an argument that we can't afford fireworks and we have to be very mindful of our budgets, but yet we can go and shoot the works on codes of conduct, for what? For stuff that I say on this program, because that's what the most recent code of conduct is about. Stuff that I've said publicly on this program. And quite clearly, at the commencement of every program, I quite clearly state, These are my views and my views alone, and not the views of Temora Shire Council. And whilst I may be a councillor on Temora Shire Council, surely in Australia in 2025, I'm entitled to my own opinion.
You are. And people
Well,
are entitled to tune in or tune out,
I
like it,
would
love it,
hope-
whatever.
I would hope that my grandfather and my father and many others have fought for that right.
Absolutely.
So where are we at? What's going on?
We're in a broken country, my friend. We are in a very, very broken, damaged, and country that's struggling with its own. Well, look, if it's embracing its identity, the identity has to be cowardly. That would be the identity that we must embrace as Australians if we are going to continue down the path that we are continuing
If people are
on.
going to sit here and accept this, if the Minister for Local Government is going to sit here and allow this to occur, whilst my biggest crime is asking questions.
Well, there's another bloke that was a similar bloke. Now, his name was Julian Assange. He got a bit of strife for asking
Richard Boyle.
questions. Richard Boyle, yeah, more time in jail than Ivan Milat was.
David McBride.
Right, yes. This asking question business is somewhat frowned upon.
Yes, don't ask questions.
But I'll tell you, I mean, look, obviously, I don't know if you saw Albright's out, which is an interesting one. He's the guy who created the Silk Road, the underground, infamous thing there. And obviously, he was really.
Did you see there was some sort of and I never picked up on the details of the story, but one of the guys that got pardoned from the January 6th stuff actually was pulled up in I think it was a roadside, got pulled up and was shot dead. So I think he lasted out of jail about 4 days after getting a pardon. I don't know the details.
No, I haven't seen that one at all. No,
that's in the US, and that's to do with the Trump
the insurrection that they called it, which was,
and then the subsequent pardon. So that's a little bit of a tragedy within a
large scope. Yeah. Look, I mean,
things aren't going well for Vladimir.
I reckon if we went back probably 2 or 3 months before Christmas and we were talking about all this, and I think you'll find that there was a couple of things I would have said fairly loudly, and I'm fairly confident I said them on public because I usually say exactly what I think. War in the Ukraine will end pretty quick now that Trump's got the reins. He's going to say, Vlad, pack your shit, go home. That's what he's going to say.
Well, he has.
And he's going to turn around a little Ukrainian bloke and he's going to go, buddy, you little cokehead actor, here's what you're going to be doing. You're not going to be getting any more money from us. But what you're also not going to be doing is you're not going to be getting any access to the United Nations or NATO. You still be able to call them on the phone or whatever, but you're not going to become a member of NATO.
NATO's not going to be worth the stamp if the US aren't funding it.
And that's what's going to happen. He's going to be, you're not getting a Guernsey, but here's what you're going to get. Vlad, go home.
Yes.
Don't piss me off. Go home. And Vlad will go, about time he was back in charge, I suppose. Yeah, right, I'll go home. We've had a good time there. And that seems to be happening. We watched this business with Palestine and Israel. And there's still some obviously tension. There's thousands of years of tension. But I tell you what, even while Biden was still president and Trump came out and I don't know the exact phrase, I'm paraphrasing. If this isn't done by the time I'm in office, we're going to have a real bad time over there. I'm going to turn it into an absolute shitstorm. Yeah, we're talking about peace talks, so we're going to let some hostages go. And, and did you see the one with Colombia the other day?
No.
Fucking brilliant, right? So Trump's big thing is I'm packing up these illegal immigrants and I'm sending them home. Now, so the bleeding hearts go, oh, but the poor buggers, There's an element of that. That's sure. And there are some good people who have snuck across the border because they're country shit and they want to be in America and they want an opportunity. I get it. Desperation will do it, blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to just make a living. But there are gangsters and criminals that are also illegally going into the US.
And there's gangsters and criminals who are profiting from the transport.
Absolutely. And there's scumbags and dead shits and whatever. And he's said, I'm going to wrap them up and I'm going to send them home. We've got our own criminals. I'm not paying for your criminals. Have them back.
Yes.
Oh, but you can't do that. Well, he's done it. And he's the bloke, what is it, Tom Homan, I think his name is, the boss of that department. He said, right, Tommy boy, get out there, wrap them, pack them, load them onto planes.
Yeah.
Send them home.
Yeah.
Well, the Colombian planes had, however many people he threw on a military plane, 2 military planes. He sent them over to Colombia. as it's over Colombian airspace, the pilot or whoever is in charge of that little show got a call the radio, whatever. Yes, you can turn around and go home. You're not welcome to land here. This is Colombian airspace. We're not taking these people. Well, President said, you are?
Yes.
Well, we're not, and I'm the president of Colombia. You can bash it up your ass. And then released a statement that waffled off into some wild shit. I started reading it, and then I kind of went, I need a transcript, so surely there's no one reading this waffle. And he waffled on about how Trump doesn't like him because he's black, and I don't know, he's a transgender. It was just gibbering, pathetic nonsense, and I'm not doing it, and you can't make me. And they're a heavily communist government over there, massive socialists. Trump turned around, got on his Truth Social, which, is where he released all his statements, start a statement. He goes, right, this is how it's going to be. President of Colombia doesn't want to take these, their own criminals back. I've got no problem with that. Fair enough. There's now a 25% tariff on all products coming out of Colombia. That price lasts for a week. If these people haven't been taken on board within that week, those tariffs go up to 50%. And within, I don't know, it seemed like 20 minutes, Colombian president rings up and goes, do you need to borrow my plane to load a few of these blokes off? Yeah, we'll take them, we'll work, because Americans buy a certain percentage of their coffee and flowers, apparently, are one of their biggest imports from Colombia. But you're doing it, I don't care, and I will bill you accordingly, dickhead.
Yes.
Right? They're your criminals. They're not mine. Yes. I don't know. I've got to put up with my shitheads. I'll put up with my shitheads. I'm not putting up with yours.
He's reopened Gitmo.
Gitmo,
he has for illegal immigrants.
Yeah,
seriously. So they've reopened Guantanamo,
mate.
That's serious shit.
He's not fucking around, and his team's not. And if RFK gets in, cost. I mean, they've already started, removing certain dyes.
Did you see there was obviously some other sided stuff came out about RFK being a predator.
From his cousin or whatever, and she's a hardcore Democrat lunatic who thinks men can get pregnant. So, again, if you think men can get pregnant, I can't take. And also, seriously.
Find me someone who hasn't got something in their past they're not proud of, and I'll call you.
Well, I've never seen RFK come out and say I'm an angel. He come out and he goes, "These people are killing you."
Yes.
And if you actually, there's a video going around of Bill Gates at the moment. I don't know if I haven't had a chance to read it.
It's been a massive program trying to disconnect Bill Gates from Epstein.
Yeah, and Fauci.
Yes.
And obviously nothing says innocent and sweet like a preemptive pardon for a guy who's arguably.
This is Fauci.
Yeah.
Why do you need a pardon if you've done nothing?
You've done nothing wrong. Absolutely. You didn't. When Trump left last time, he could have pardoned everybody he knows. Pardoned shit. Last time, nobody could Guernsey could have, his kids, all them. No, didn't do any of that shit. But then you turn around and you're watching the Bill Gates interview where he talks about one of whoever's interviewing. He says, now, there's a book from RFK because he's trying to discredit RFK where he basically accuses you and Fauci of basically poisoning the fucking planet, which I can't say seems like a lie to me. But then, and Bill Gates didn't deny it. In this interview, he didn't come around and go, nah, that's all bullshit. Look, he's a lying wanker. He went, oh, well, that's up for people to decide.
Yeah, there's been a bit of that. RFK said a lot of things, and no one's actually brought suit against him.
Not one person has brought suit. Nobody's filed a claim. Nobody has come in. They've called him nasty names. And if there was ever a position where you could go, oh, this guy's defaming me, you'd probably do it. If you're being defamed as opposed to being guilty as sin.
Yes. Interesting. Haven't heard much out of Liverpool. Cootamundra Gundagai, apparently there's hearings coming up for the Boundaries Commission on the demerger later this month, but no one at Cootamundra Gundagai knows about it. There's nothing on their website about it.
Yeah, right. That's always interesting. Well, I actually had a call this week from James Gooden. From over that Cootamundra Gundagai area. I wasn't familiar with James.
He's running in the federal.
He's put his hand up for the federal.
As an independent.
And he reached out.
He's going up against
Michael what's his name?
Mickey McMickey.
Michael what's his name? That made the news when I said that when they interviewed me. But anyway, James gave me a call and we had a bit of a chat, about his candidacy and what have you. I don't know the guy, so I can't endorse him, not endorse him, or support him at this stage. I know Richard Foley's put his hand in the hat in the ring. I haven't seen any other candidates bar that. I'm assuming Mark Jefferson will run for Labor because Mark runs. Michael what's his name's not going anywhere anytime soon. But
isn't it funny how that they just seem to drift through? And I imagine if you raise anything to do with the period when Scott Morrison was in power, or any of the issues that were part of that government, that they'll be dismissed forthwith and won't be spoken of, and it's all about the future. And
it's amazing how quickly. And you know what? I like forward thinking, but you've also got to own your past, and you've got to own your mistakes, and you've got to own.
I don't believe you can move forward until you do own your past.
Oh, you've got to. There's a reason that with any bullshit people like throw at me, I shrug it off because I've owned every bit of it.
Yeah, a couple of people in council have said, "Oh, we just want to move forward. We just want to move forward."
Oh, they
just address what's occurred.
Yeah, let's
just deal with this properly, and then we can move forward.
Absolutely, we can't move forward while you're still keeping secrets and hiding and smuggling Diddy's baby oil into the council chambers. That's just not going to happen. But look, all these things are really interesting. It is exciting times. I'm glad you've thrown out another Gipper Act. That's great, fantastic.
Well, it wasn't by choice. I've got better things to do.
Well, I know you do, but I can guarantee I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go give me the information. I need to know it. I'm not going to go through the rigmarole you go through. I'll just tell them to fuck off.
If they say to you no, they've got no right to say that. But they say no, and then you say, how else do you get it?
Well, that's what happens with criminal overlords. They run their own show, little fiefdoms, little gangs.
That's what I'm saying. So the only thing I can actually rely upon to deliver the information is the Freedom of Information Act. And at this point in time, and to its credit, it actually is effective and it's written well. And in this particular instance, it'll be
useful.
But indefensible. And it's just the thing that I can't get is the stupidity. When you sit there and you go, I'm going to create a heap of work for this individual who's applied for this information. I'm going to create a heap of work for my staff. I'm going to probably have to engage some lawyers at some point. We're probably going to go to NCAT for a hearing. It could cost $50,000 for me to say.
They do not give a shit.
They don't, because it's not their fucking money.
Correct.
That's one of the things that was most disgusting about this code of conduct when the investigator suggested that, if I wanted to talk to someone other than a support person or my legal representative, who's got a fucking budget for a legal representative other than the council?
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's
every invoice that they raise will be met. Every second that they spend on these matters will be paid for.
And all these mobs go down, and this is socialist crap. That's what it is, right? All of them. You look at every socialist country, they get to a point where the people start smacking these people.
Oh, I'd love
They forget about the legal shit. They go, this stuff doesn't work.
If it was going to cost them 50 cents, they would shit themselves and they'd say, no, you can have it.
Yeah. But that's people will get to the point where they're just going to go off, and these people will get smacked. And it's happening in Argentina now. They're getting barreled out the gate.
Sooner the better.
Sooner the better. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen.
Good job.
Once again, thank you, Kate Fantinel. Ladies and gentlemen,
thanks.
Go fund me for Kate's fight in Western Australia against the gun laws. I think all these things are pretty important, extremely important. And I'm not a gun owner, but it is important that our gun owners are supported and have gun rights. It is highly important that as Australians we start to stand up for some stuff. It's getting out of control. Just pick something. I don't care if it's something I don't even like. Just stand up for something because it's out of control. These little overlords, and it could be just about anything at the moment. There is a rule for just about everything in this country, and most of it's crap. Kerry Packer pointed it out every time these idiot
they're out of control. We've got massive government, we've got massive bureaucracies, we've got massive just idiots just making up rules.
And they make rules to justify their existence. What have you achieved in the last 6 months in your $180,000 position? Well, I brought up a law for this and a law for that, and I got it pushed through Parliament. And
now we've got a department. We've got 50 more staff.
Yes, and I have to manage their staff, and that's a big job because
I need help and I need more budget.
And then we'll come up with more rules that'll take more privileges away from free and honest.
What about the pothole? Don't worry about the pothole.
No, that's right. Absolutely. We're not going to do anything fucking
What about
useful.
social housing? Don't look
Don't
over
look
there.
at that. You look at the stuff where people are having their feelings
Yeah.
hurt.
I busted someone on an e-bike the other day.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
Yeah, like go electric, but not on an e-bike or a scooter.
No bill on an e-bike or a scooter. And let's be fair, these things keep blowing up and catching fire. The technology is a long way from being amazing. But everyone, thank you for tuning in once again. Obviously, feedback's great. Like, share, subscribe, all that kind of malarkey. Obviously, Anthony Irvine Stand Up for Tomorrow Facebook page. Jump on there, give it a like, give it a follow. Dean McRae's spirit of self-determination. Can't even say it. My English is gone. That's my only superpower, is the fact that I can talk my ass off. I haven't been as active, but obviously as the federal elections coming up, I'll probably get a bit more interactive on there.
I've been active, but behind the scenes, obviously, with codes of
Yeah,
conduct, with
look.
GIPA requests, with all the other paperwork that you've got to do in the background to actually hold these pricks to account.
And if you did like, learning about Lady Liberty and meeting Katie Fantinel, jump on. She's got the Lady Liberty website. She's got calendars, all sorts of shit. She's right into that. She's a little legend. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We obviously appreciate it whenever you tune in. And next week at 7:30 on Thursday night, same locations, same time, all that sort of fun stuff. You'll have Dean and Nerve Spin Doctors, and we'll be back with no bullshit, no spin, and no holds barred.
The spin.